Hey YouTube, this is Steve from Average Joe's Fantasy Football, and we've got your Week 9 start and sit video for the quarterback position. It is Week 9, Halloween week, so hopefully you guys have a great time and be safe and have fun on Halloween for Thursday, which of course there is a game between the Texans and Jets. So let's jump right into this start and sit video. So Week 9 is here of the NFL season. We are talking quarterback position. Now, there are two teams on a bye. You've got the Steelers and the 49ers, so no Brock Purdy, no Russell Wilson, but a lot less teams, which is great news, so you have a lot of options to figure out your lineup. Now, of course, that's what I'm here for, to help you guys figure out who you should start and sit this week. Hit me up in the comments if you do have questions for lineups, and of course, any type of questions, whether it be other positions, trades, waivers, whatever it is. I'd love to help you guys out. Now, these are your obvious starts at the quarterback position. I don't have the largest list, but I love these matchups, or these players are just consistently top 10, if not top 5 in fantasy. So I love these guys. Now, the first quarterback I actually like this week is going to be Patrick Mahomes versus the Bucs. It's kind of odd, right? Having to put Patrick Mahomes as a start this week instead of the obvious start. But unfortunately, he's kind of fallen out of that. Right now, Mahomes is currently quarterback 21 this season in fantasy and has looked very human despite that his team is winning and undefeated. With the Chiefs adding DeAndre Hopkins to the roster this past week and had a soft matchup in Week 8, Mahomes actually is coming off his best fantasy performance with 18 points. Mahomes has still continued to throw an interception per game, which is not his normal routine, but for him, this is a really good matchup against the Buccaneers. Really, potential top 5 performance. The Bucs are allowing 270 passing yards, and they're allowing 22 fantasy points per game. So if you've held on to Mahomes, he's still there on your roster. This is the week you want to try to put him in there, and he'll probably end up putting close to 20, 25 points. Now, another quarterback I like is going to be Derek Carr versus the Panthers. There is a big chance that Derek Carr plays this week after missing a few weeks due to his injury. And the Saints absolutely need it. Olave needs it. Kamara needs it. Everybody needs Derek Carr back in there. The Rattler experiment didn't go quite as smooth as many had hoped, even myself included. I was a big believer in Rattler, and I still am. I think he just needs some time behind Derek Carr, and even, maybe a couple more years. But I still think there's something there. Now, coming off injury, though, this is the perfect matchup going against the Carolina Panthers. This is absolutely the perfect one. Now, Week 1's matchup where they played each other, Carr threw for 3 touchdowns and put up 21 fantasy points. So the matchup is great. I know he's coming off of injury, but I'm not overly concerned with that. I think this is a perfect one. Now, another quarterback I like, Kirk Cousins versus the Cowboys. Dallas has continued to struggle this season, especially on the defensive side. They are allowing an average of 19.8 points per game and allowing a total of 13 touchdowns in 7 games. They struggle to get after the quarterback. They're not creating turnovers. They're not putting any type of pressure. And Kirk is coming off another amazing game against the Buccaneers where he put up 28 fantasy points and he threw for 4 touchdowns, again, sweeping the Bucs. So Kirk Cousins is in a great position to have some success. And within that same game, I like Dak Prescott as well versus the Falcons. The Falcons struggle against the pass this season. They're allowing 18 points per game and haven't allowed an average of 2 passing touchdowns per game as well. Now, Dak has not played very well. Offensive line is struggling. And I will say this, because the offensive line is struggling, because the defense is struggling, there is no run game. Dak will have to continue to pass and try to keep up with the Atlanta Falcons offense, especially since there's really just no running game to speak of. So all of this is going to fall on Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb for this matchup. I do think Dak should deserve a spot on your roster starting this week. Now, jumping into the sits, first quarterback I want to mention, it's going to be CJ Stroud versus the Jets. Speaking of that Thursday night game for Halloween, sure, the Jets defense hasn't been anywhere near as great as they were in 2023, and they haven't been as amazing as you would like, but they're still pretty effective against the pass. They're only allowing 180 yards per game, less than a touchdown per game, and they're holding quarterbacks to 13 fantasy points per game. Stroud is coming into Thursday night's game with Tank Dell, Mechie, and Hutchinson as his healthy wide receivers. Nico's obviously expected within a week or so back from his injury, but unfortunately with the news update with Stephon Diggs, he tore his ACL and is out for the season. There aren't a lot of great weapons for CJ Stroud. He hasn't played amazing. He's had a few good games, but again, overall, not amazing. And it's a tough matchup and a quick turnaround game against the Jets in New York. I'm going to sit CJ Stroud. Now, another quarterback I'm really kind of nervous is going to be Tua this week, going against the Bills. This is the second game from his, coming back from his concussion. And of course, it has to be against the Bills, right? Like that's how it lines up. Hopefully it just does not affect him mentally. And even with that, I'm still not comfortable, obviously, starting him against the Bills. The Bills have been pretty tough against the passers this year, holding them to only 14 points per game. And they're actually creating an interception per game as well. Tua's in his first game back. In his first game back only last week, he only put up 14 fantasy points, which wasn't amazing, especially against the Cardinals defense that isn't great. I had expected a little bit more, but again, I understand if you're going to play him this week because you're looking for possible upside, but the Bills defense is actually pretty good. And Tua is now going into this, I think mentally could affect him this week because it tends, every time he has these serious concussions, it tends to be against the Buffalo Bills. I'm not sure what the issue is, but I would try to sit him. And the last quarterback I'm going to sit, Trevor Lawrence versus the Eagles. Shockingly, the Eagles' pass defense have actually done pretty well as of recently. Since week 4, they've held quarterbacks to 9.4 points per game and only 167 passing yards. Lawrence is coming into this game throwing to himself or running backs at this point. Jaguars are expected to miss Brian Thomas Jr. this week. Christian Kirk is out for this season. And Gabe Davis is questionable. Doesn't leave a lot of great options. You got Parker Washington, you got Evan Ingram, and obviously the running backs and Bigsby and possibly Etienne if he comes in. So this is going to be a really tough matchup. On top of that, the Jaguars traded their left tackle away to the Vikings, which means there's going to be less time, less opportunities for Trevor Lawrence to actually get there. Eagles pass rush could get to Lawrence as well. So this is a matchup I am not putting Lawrence in. Now my sleepers for this week, I've got Bo Nix versus the Ravens, Caleb Williams versus the Cardinals, and Jameis Winston versus the Chargers. All three of these quarterbacks have the ability to be top 10 this week. Their matchups are juicy, especially Bo Nix. I know it's kind of crazy, but I've talked about Bo Nix a few times in start and sits, and he should be in your lineup. The Ravens defense has struggled. Cardinals aren't great. Caleb Williams should turn this week around. And then again, like I mentioned, Jameis Winston is a perfect scenario against the Chargers. So those are my start sits and sleepers for week 9. If you guys do have questions, hit me up in the comments down below. Make sure you check out my other videos. Hit that subscribe button and that like button. I'll check you guys out next time.